Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our MNCC talk today. A very warm welcome to everybody. And we are so happy to welcome you into this Zoom sessions and also this Facebook Live session. And we hope that you'll benefit from these sessions. So today we are very delightful to have an evening with our very special guest here, Professor Lucy Lam, that will start running this pediatric health talk series on the first episodes, talking on the first 1,000 days of life and beyond. So for your information, this talk series composed of 3 episodes. The first one is today, and the second one will be on 13th of August, which we will focus more on weaning diet, how to eat, and what not to eat. And on the 27th of August, we are going to zoom in more towards toddlers, nutrition, and also threats to health. So allow me to brief you through today's program. So we'll spend about 60 minutes in the talk and a small break in between. And then we'll later on continue with the 30 minutes of Q&A sessions. So just a brief orientation on the meeting. Please keep your microphone muted at all times and keep your video or camera off to ensure a more stable internet connection. This session will be recorded, so your participation in this meeting implies your consent for the recording. If any time point you have any questions, do type in the chat box in Zoom, or you can leave a comment at the Facebook Live sessions. So a brief disclaimer here, MNCC Health Talks aim to raise public awareness to promote healthy living. Information provided today is not to replace a doctor's consultations. If you encounter any personal health problems, please do not disclose it here to protect your confidentiality, but consult your personal doctors. So today we are very, very delightful to have Professor Lucy Lam here with us today. So allow me to have a brief introduction for Prof. Lucy. She's a pediatrician with 30 years of experience in dengue management and pediatric intensive care. So she collaborated with clinicians in Southeast Asia and Latin America in developing the 2009 revised dengue case classification, evaluation, and clinical research. At the same time, she served as a WHO temporary advisor in dengue outbreak areas in Laos, PDR, and the Solomon Islands. She, together with the local healthcare workers, adapted the clinical case management to the minimal resource environment. So at the same time, before her retirement, she started a second career to promote child health and early childhood nutrition and focusing on the first 1,000 days when the foundation for lifelong health is laid. Her dream is to live the circular economy with a carbon neutral footprint where every child can realize his best potential. So Prof. Lucy is currently a senior consultant with the Department of Paediatrics for University Malaya Medical Center, and also the honorary professor in the Department of Paediatrics for Faculty of Medicine in University Malaya. So today we are so happy to have Prof. Lucy here to talk with us the importance of the first 1,000 days of life. What a marvelous journey of life begins. And well, Prof. Lucy, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Chin An. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Prof.
Yeah, okay, so I'll share my screen. Thank you for the kind introduction. So this will stop other people sharing. Okay, yes, do you want to continue? Yes. Okay, now how do I get rid of this? I want to share the big screen. Okay, so now I can see. You can see the screen, right?
Yes, but not in the full screen yet, Prof.
Okay, what about now?
Yes, it's in the full screen, Prof.
Okay, so thank you very much to the Malaysian Network of Caring Communities committee members for inviting me to share my experience and in the first 1,000 days and beyond. And so the topics that I'll be covering for tonight, the highlight the importance of early brain and child development, to review the influences that shape the developing brain, and to discuss what we can do to promote optimal early brain development. So this is exactly what makes pediatrics so exciting, because of the brain. At the time of birth, the newborn brain is about 1/3 of a kilogram. And by the time the baby reaches the age of 2 years old, the mass of the weight of the brain has already increased by 3 times. All right, so that is a phenomenal increase in the brain growth during the first 2 years of life. So what is happening in the brain in those 2 years? So but all of us are born at the time of birth, we have 100 billion neurons. Now the growth of the brain, that means a 3 times growth in the mass, is not due to the increase in number of neurons, but it's due to this, what we call synaptic connections. That means the neurons, when there are 100 billion neurons, and most of them are not joined to each other. So during after birth, these connections will have to be made. Right, those connections between one neuron and another neuron is known as synaptic connections. And this is occurring at a phenomenal rate of 700 connections per second. This is no joke here. You heard it right, it's 700 per second. And so that by the age of 2 to 3 years old, each of the 100 billion neurons in our brain is already connected to 17,000 other neurons. Can you imagine? This is so phenomenal. And the second phenomenon that is going on in the brain that contributes to the brain growth is the myelination of nerve fibers. So basically, each of the nerves have got a very long strand, as you can see in the picture. And this is where the impulses, the messages are going to go along. But the myelination, the sheath around this, the strands, will increase the speed of the conduction of the messages. So the myelination occurs, and that allows the speed of the messages to occur. So you can see that with these two, the connections and the myelination, the brain is a very active organ in the first year of life, so much so that it uses up 50 to 60% of the oxygen that the baby uses for the whole body. So the brain alone uses up more than 50% of the total oxygen that is available to the child. Now, not only are there synaptic connections and myelination, there is also dendrite formation. So meaning that each neuron will then form more branches. Like a tree, it will form more branches so that each tree can be connected to more neurons. So it's not like one connected to one, but one is branching out to many, many, and each of those many, many branches are connected to other branches. All right, so other branches of another neuron. So this dendritic formation accounts for, and these synaptic connections will then lay the foundation for all the sensory, motor skills and emotions, behavior, logic, and language learning for the rest of the child's life. Okay, so these are forming very much, most of them, 80% of these are already, whatever that is formed in the brain occurs in the first 2 years of life. So now, neuroscientists are always very curious about what is driving those synaptic connections, right? What makes the neurons want to connect to each other? Is it nature? Is it genetic? Or is it nurturing? Nurturing means the care, the environment. And this is no longer a question, okay? It is now well known. Many, many neuroscience studies have shown that what is actually driving the synaptic connections is actually an interaction between the genetic processes, the biological processes, and the environment and the early experiences that the child goes through in life. Okay, but we should not forget, you might be asking yourself, what is the meaning of these connections? Okay, let me just get rid. I can't see my slides because of this bar. Okay, let me just get rid of it. Okay, so we will talk about what this environment is, these experiences are, but we must not forget that basic health support such as water, sanitation, and nutrition are equally important in this whole process of brain development. Now I cannot move my slides. Can you see the slides moving? I cannot move my slides now.
The slides are, maybe you click on the screen again. How about that?
Okay. Okay, you're right. So I just
all
need
right.
to get rid of, no, there's a bar that is blocking my view of the slides. So, okay.
But we don't see the bar.
Yeah, but it is blocking my view. Okay. So never mind. So I'll just go through the few characteristic, summarize the few characteristic features of human brain development. And basically, the brains are built over time and is built from the bottom up, meaning that the simpler circuits are built first. And then once the simpler circuits are built and stabilized, then the more complex circuits will build over the simple circuits. So let me show you this graph here, and let me first orientate you. So the x-axis here is the timelines, and you see the -8 and so on to -1. Those are the prenatal, that means in uterus. The baby is already, the brain is already developing. All right, it's already developing. And then there is the pink box here, which shows you the first year of life. Every number here is a month, each month. And then after the first year, every number in this graph is a year. All right, so a lot of it is happening in the first 2 years. So let's see what is happening first. So most of the myelination actually occurs in the first year, but towards the end of pregnancy, already there are some synaptic connections and myelination, but the majority of it occurs after the baby is born. And the first few pathways that are formed are the sensory pathways, because the babies are born with eyes, ears that can hear, and the skin that has got the tactile senses. All right, through these senses, the baby receives information from the environment, and these information will go to specific areas in the brain and build those pathways. All right, so the baby has to be exposed to these senses. Otherwise, even if you have the sensory organs, but you do not, say if you have the eyes, but your eyes are not able to receive light for some reason, then the sensory pathways do not form. Right, so a lot of these pathways, as you can see, are formed in the sensory pathways are formed in the first 2 to 3 months of life, very, very early in life. So much so that once they are stabilized, then the baby starts to form his language. So the baby starts to coo, and then to babble. And then by the age of 1 year, the baby is already starting to talk and to communicate. So with the language formation, the baby is then able to communicate better, more meaningfully. And then from there, he develops his higher cognitive function, such as understanding, reasoning, and so on and so forth, attention and focus. So all these will form after these language and the sensory pathways have formed. All right, so it has to be formed in that sequence, and it has to be formed at that right time. Okay, once you miss the timing, sorry, it doesn't happen. Things don't go backwards. Right, now the second thing, okay, I cannot move my slides now. Something is not quite. Let me try. Where? It's not moving. What can I do? Okay, click on the slide. Oh yeah, you did say click on the slide. Okay. So now the other question that is always very intriguing to neuroscientists is this interaction between how do the genes interact, the nature interact with the nurturing. Okay, so it's basically an interaction of these genetics, genes, and experience that shape the developing brain. So the role of genetics is to determine the timing of the circuits. Like we said that in the first 2 to 3 months, it is the hearing pathways and the visual pathways that are forming. So the timing is that determined by genetics. And what forms the architecture of that circuit, what forms that architecture is the experience. Okay, and here when we say experience, it means this serve and return. It's like playing ping pong. Somebody serves and then the other player returns the circuit. And this serve and return is that relationship between the baby and the parents. So babies naturally reach out for interactions towards their caregiver because that is their survival skill. Their survival ability is to reach out to the carer. Right? And if the carer or the adult responds in an appropriate way, then that serve and return circuit is built. And over time, it becomes stable. All right, so it is this very simple, baby looks at the father, father smiles back, and then this interaction goes on, and this basically builds the circuit of the brain, right? However, if in the absence of such responses, say, for example, the mother or the carer is too preoccupied with depression or financial issues, they may not be so receptive to the baby's reaching out. So these responses, the baby does serves but did not get a return. So eventually, this kind of architecture, the circuits do not form as expected, and this gives rise to the disparity in the learning and the behavior problems that follow later on in life. So in the beginning of life, it is just very simple. Sounds simple, but if it doesn't form in that early stage of life, then we will encounter problems later on, right? Now, the third thing about the brain is that the ability of the brain to change with experience, what we term neuroplasticity, decreases with age. So this is a kind of a schematic conceptual graph that shows you the blue line, the neuroplasticity, the ability of the brain to change in response to experiences, is very rapid, is very high at the time of birth, but it decreases rapidly in the first 5 years of life, right? Meaning that when the brain is very, very plastic, you take very, very little effort to build those circuits. Okay, the circuit is developing, and during the developing stage, it doesn't take a lot of effort to build it right. However, once the circuits are formed with time, this neuroplasticity will decrease, because once the circuits are already firmed down and you want to change the circuit, it takes a lot of effort. So this, it changes. So in the beginning of life, where the brain is very neuroplastic, it doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of repetition and intensity to build those circuits. But once it is formed and you try to change it, it takes a lot of effort. All right, the effort increases and you don't get to see very much changes. But the good thing about the brain's neuroplasticity is that this neuroplasticity continues throughout life. It doesn't get down to zero. It actually only stops on the day that you die, on the last breath. Otherwise, your brain is still growing, changing. It's just that towards the end of your life, it may not change so fast and it may not be so easy. So the easiest time is much easier, less costly to form strong brain circuits during early years than it is to fix them later. And so this concept gives rise to this, what we understand, our understanding of sensitive periods and critical periods. So these during so sensitive periods and critical periods. So the early experiences that a child undergoes shapes the architecture and the neurobiochemistry of the brain in a big way. So during that period when the brain is developing, the experiences will shape those circuits, and because they operate within a limited time frame, then that period is called the sensitive period. So during that sensitive period, the brain is very receptive to positive, nutritional, and social stimulation. All right. So now, if a particular experience is crucial for the normal development, say, for example, exposure to light is crucial for the development of the visual pathway, then if that doesn't happen, then it's not going to happen ever again. Okay, so that period is known as the critical period. So different neurological skills and functions have different sensitive and critical periods. So visual pathways, the critical period is actually in the first few months of life. So say, for example, if a baby is born with cataracts, congenital cataracts, and that is not detected until much later, even if you remove the cataracts, that child may not be able to gain the normal visual acuity, right? There is circuits that are formed during the sensitive period. They tend to stabilize with time because the experience and the environment, they will adapt to the environment, and becomes difficult to change those circuits later on. So whatever that can be changed is limited or depends on the neuroplasticity. Okay, so there is some degree of recoverability, but it is limited by that plasticity there. So this gives us an idea that there is an opportunity for us to help with the developing brain, but also the brain is also very vulnerable if those stimulation or the right influences and environment are not present during those sensitive and critical periods. Say, for example, in early life, let's say that the brain is forming all those synapses, the myelin sheath, so you need a lot of nutrients and the correct form of nutrients. And if they are short of those nutrients, then these may have a very irreversible, that lack of nutrient mean the brain structure may not form, and this may result in irreversible long-term consequences which may last on for life. Okay, so in the first early childhood, we need to focus on the stimulation and early nutrition in early childhood. So the first 1,000 days basically starts from the time of conception up to the time of 24 months. And this is also 1,000 days is a critical period where the foundations for subsequent optimal growth, health, and neurodevelopment of a person is established for the entire lifespan. Okay, so the first 1,000 days, who you are today, was shaped actually in the first 1,000 days. Okay, and those first 1,000 days includes 270 days of pregnancy, 365 days in the first year, and 365 days in the second year. So this totals up to 1,000 days. So why is it so important? So this is to summarize, before the age of 5 years, it takes less time, intensity, and repetition to organize the developing neural systems that it does to reorganize an already developed neural system. So those of us who have built houses will know, when you're building a house, you can make changes, but once your house is built, you want to make changes, it's very, very, very expensive. So this is where the neuroplasticity is. So what happens early in life affects all aspects of a child's development. So the first 1,000 days of life have a profound impact on brain development, and nurturing relationships in these early years are critical. If there's any toxic stress, has a negative impact on a child's development. And early interventions are critical for optimal life course outcomes. So now, every child, when they are born, each human being is born with a cognitive potential. And this potential is different and is unique to that individual. Some of us fulfill more, some less. Now, the realization of our potential is determined by how much we have been conditioned, if we have been in our correct environment and circumstances. So from the moment we are born, we are on a mission to move, to learn, and to thrive. And babies, the same, they work hard at mastering the essentials of rolling over, sitting up, crawling, standing, and walking, and eventually running. So given the right opportunities, in about a year's time, give and take a few months, the baby will be up and running, right? However, it appears that, look at sometimes it looks like the whole society is bent on preventing these from happening. So you can see here different postures in a child. So here is a child, the first picture, a child in a prone position, sitting very comfortably on the carer's chest and feeling very warm, very cared for. Whereas this is a baby who's left alone, okay, slouched on a pram, strapped, not allowed to move, and with nobody to hold him. Now, this was a recent picture that I saw, and this is a mother who was carrying the baby. And the first thing I actually noted was how round this baby's head is. Now, this is very, very rare nowadays because babies are put on to sleep on their back. So they end up with heads that are no longer nice and round like this baby. And not only that, when the mother is carrying the baby can reach to the mother's hand, as compared to this baby who is left alone on the pram with nobody to interact with. So this is how we disempower our babies, okay? And if we do not put our babies to exercise right from the beginning, this is a child who is 3 months, 4 months. You can see that she is already weight bearing, very confident, very strong, not buckling at all, not folding over. So these are how you can encourage and condition our children in early childhood. However, if we do the reverse, which most of us do without realizing, I must say, without realizing the consequences, then our babies are prevented from developing normally. And it makes, like I said, in most cases, it begins right after birth. Okay? Say, for example, breastfeeding. Okay, nowadays there are so many ways to feed a baby, even with breast milk. So the traditional way is direct breastfeeding. All right, but breastfeeding is more than just nutrition. So when the mother carries the baby and directly the baby that latches on directly to the mother's breast, a lot of things are happening between the mother and the infant. Okay, there is eye-to-eye contact, there is a heart-to-heart talk, there is the skin-to-skin touch, and the immune cells that the mother has is shared with the baby. The bacterial flora, the baby can smell, can feel the mother's warmth and smell the mother's smell. And so all these are happening. Again, all these have an impact on the baby's brain. So it's not just nutrition. All right. So direct breastfeeding is what we recommend. However, sometimes, babies don't even get that. Yes, they do get breast milk, but it is not direct breastfeeding. Right? Other ways of disempowering the baby, we put the babies strapped to their car seats, put them in front of the TV to babysit. So the television becomes the babysitter. So they are not allowed to lie on the tummy, experiencing the skin-to-skin contact with their parents. They are not allowed to mouth objects. They are not allowed to crawl, scribble, and explore, jump around, mess around, not allowed to do housework because they don't know how to do it. Okay, parents, that's what we parents think. Okay, and even during the weaning stage, we are doing so many things that are not quite right and not optimal for our baby, such as giving them blended food, pureed food, because we are scared that they will choke. All right, and we also don't allow our babies to feed themselves because they make a mess of it, and they must always be clean and neat, And then they are also parents. Some parents think that okay, we should give them our children, imported fruits because those are more expensive. So we have all these perceptions which may not be really so baby friendly to our babies. Other ways of disempowering the baby is putting them on a walker. We think that, with the walker, they can walk around, they can move around faster. But do you know that in Canada, baby walkers have been banned since 2004. And if the baby is found in the baby walker, the parents will be fined 1,000, 100,000, or 6 months in jail. Okay, so you can see that. So baby walkers are not to be encouraged, but how here in this country, we still use this. Now, when we put the babies on the walker, this is what we deprive the baby of. You can see the difference in this baby's feet when he is weight bearing on his own feet, his muscles of his feet, and especially the small muscles are being strengthened, and he's developing his proprioception and his balance. Whereas this child who is supported by the baby walker, you can see that his feet is kind of everted a bit. All right, so that leads to problems later on in life. All right, so babies should not go on at any time point in life, should not go on the baby walker. Okay. And when we put them on a baby walker, we actually delay their walking. Why? Because before a baby can walk, first of all, he needs to develop the strength of his ankles, his calf muscles. He needs to develop the balancing in all these small joints, the proprioception of these small joints here. And then he needs to develop the spinal strength, and then his core muscles in his pelvic girdle needs to be strong so that he can get up from a crawling, squatting position into the upright position. So all this is a very continuous process. When we put a baby on a walker, we disrupt this whole process. Okay, so it doesn't happen. So when you put a baby out of the walker, the baby has no confidence to put his feet even on the ground because he's never been unsupported. He's always had this walker, his upper limbs to support him. So without that, he loses his confidence straight away, right? So please do not do that to our children. Now, I'd like to just discuss something that is, I'm sure you have been very curious about this, the oral exploration phase. It's actually a form of learning. A baby's response to new things. So around about 4 months old, the baby is already reaching out for objects, putting his hands into the mouth, and he's discovering that, oh, I've got hands. And then he would take out his hand, and then you look at his hand again, and then put it into his mouth again, and then you take it out. And this is what they do. Okay, when they see any new things, as long as they can grasp it, they'll reach out for it, and they'll immediately put it into his mouth. Why? Because he needs to explore it. There are a lot of sensory receptors in the mouth that he needs to use in order to learn about the object. So he will put it into his mouth and then look at it. And then this mouthing, actually, once the baby is familiar with the object, he's no longer mouthing about it. But once he makes small changes in the texture and the shape, then the baby will notice it, and then he will start putting it into his mouth again. So this is the way babies learn about the environment, through the sensory information that is transmitted from the mouth. Okay, now children with Down syndrome, with preterm, or mothers who infants with depression, mothers who are depressed, they do less mouthing. Okay, they do less learning. And this mouthing process is also very important for developing the oral motor muscles, the skills that enable the child to chew, to swallow, and later on to move on to speech development. Okay. So this is a graph showing the brain. So every sensory organ, receptor in our body actually is mapped out in our brain. Okay, in the part of the brain we call the sensory homunculus. Right, so here you have the brain, the one in blue. Similarly, our motor organs are also represented in the brain. Okay, but for our purpose, we are looking at the sensory cortex, the part of the brain, and you can see here this part of the brain here is representing the oral area. This is the face, and this part of the brain is the hands, and the legs are down here. All right, so you can see that it is not proportional to the surface area. So the face occupies, and the hands occupies a much larger surface area than the legs and the feet. All right, so even though our legs and feet are much bigger than our hands, but the surface area that it occupies, the real estate that it occupies in the brain is so much larger. Okay. All right, so now if we were to do a proportionality representation of the sensory organs on our body, this is how we would look like, okay? Our hands would be very, very big. Our mouth and our lips and tongue are very, very big. And our body would be very small, legs very small, feet very small, okay? If we were to draw this from here proportionately. All right, so that is why when children reaches for objects, they immediately will put into their mouth, because the hand and the mouth are very close to each other. All right. So now next thing is about crawling. Okay, a lot of children also do not get a chance to crawl because they say, oh, the floor is dirty, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but crawling is actually a very important movement. In order to be able to crawl, you need to have coordination between the right brain and the left brain. And not only that, it has the arms and the legs are in reciprocal movements, meaning that the one arm and the contralateral leg are coordinated with the opposite arm. All right, so that allows a lot of cross communication between the right brain and the left brain. Okay, and not only left brain, but also like right arm and left leg. All right, and the hands are also used for balancing the weight, and that allows the shoulder muscles to get stronger and the shoulder girdle to get stronger, and that supports the chest, wherein lies the lungs, and that helps to strengthen our breathing. So crawling is very, very important. It's not just for movement, it is a strengthening and coordination of the brain, development of the brain. And the hands are also, the wrists are under a lot of stress, and that strengthens the wrist and allows the child to develop fine motor skills. Okay. Now, also from the low position, floor position, the child is then sees things in a different perspective. So this navigating on the ground helps the visual spatial skills and the depth perception to develop more quickly. Okay, so now I'd like to move on to another part of the early, child development, and that is language. All right, so I just like to talk about this early catastrophe, also termed the 30 million word gap by the age of 3. And this is a study that is actually done in the 1960s and 70s. And although it was only recently published, well, not recent, but it's published so much later. And basically it was a study, these children, starting at the age of 11 months, 12 months, they were followed up until 36 months, and each of these children were given a tape recorder to record every word that is spoken to them. All right, and the children were coming from 3 different social classes: those in the professional group, whose parents are in the professional group, who are college educated, those who are in the working class, and those children whose parents are on welfare. And you can see that the number of words that they heard from each of these are so different. So right from the beginning, each of these children from the different social classes are already on a different trajectory of development. Okay, so much so that by the age of 3 years, the difference in the word gap between the welfare and the professional class is actually 30 million words. Can you imagine? 30 million words. So that is the quantity of words that is those children in the whose parents are educated, college educated, were hearing 30 million more words than children from social welfare. All right. And not only were the quantity different, but the type of words, the affirmative versus the prohibitive words. Okay, the ratio is 6:1. So the children in the professional families, they were hearing more affirmative, more encouraging words like "well done," "good," you know, you make me so happy. So these are encouraging words. Whereas children in the welfare class were hearing the reverse. They were hearing more negative words. And this accumulate over years. And by the age of 4 years, it's already very, very cumulative. So everything is just accumulated. So by the age of 4 years, children from families on welfare compared to the working class has so much fewer encouragements and more discouragements. And it's not surprising that their future are already on different trajectories. 10 years later, 20 years later, it becomes even wider and wider, right? Now, this also is a very interesting graph. This shows the returns to investment. Say, if we were to invest equally in different age groups, in the preschool children, in the school-going children, when they're in school program, or in post-school in their job training, and we each invest equal amounts in each of these categories of children across all the age groups, the returns are not equal. Okay, the returns are much, much better if we were to invest in the preschool, like in preschool programs. The return to investment in human capital would be so much better than if we were to invest in them much, much later. And that's again to do with the neuroplasticity, because once the brain is formed, even if you have a lot of money, you put in a lot of money, it doesn't mean that you're going to get the results. Whereas if you invest that same amount in the preschool program at a time when the brain is very neuroplastic and is developing, then the returns to investment is so much better. So basically, you know, what we are seeing here is if you have a skill, the skill will beget more skill. Okay, if they are already learning, and the child will learn more. So childhood is really a multi-stage process where the early investments will feed into the later investments. So we need to invest early. Okay, so now, shall we take a break, or do you want me to finish this?
And Prof, we can take a break from here.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So we'll have like a 2 minutes break like that. But for those online, now is the time we do some poll. That means that we do some Q&As here. Okay. Really thank you, Prof, for such a wonderful knowledge on all those. Yeah, unfortunately, I'm one of the one that been put in the baby walker. Yeah, so it was quite amazing to have so many informations. And now I think Prof also have some questions for the audience. We would like to make this more interactive. I'm going to launch this poll now. All right, can everybody see some questions on your screen? Let's do something more interactive here. You can answer to this here, and then like in 2 minutes later, we'll come back to this, and maybe Prof can give us some input on this as well. Yeah. We have 31 participants here currently in Zoom with us. And also another, let me see, another 15 from Facebook. For those who are currently tuning live from the Facebook, you can also come interact with us. Yeah, we have our facilitator there posting the questions under the comment sections. You can also comment on there, and then we can bring it forward here. Yeah. So another 30 seconds to go, then we'll close the poll. Okay, I think 2 minutes is up. All right, Prof, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, come. I'll end the poll and I'll share the results with everybody. Okay, can see the result, Prof. Quite interesting.
Can. Yeah. Most are actually quite good. Yeah, most of them do put a baby prone, but it's very good. And 90% that the children to do housework, fantastic.
Yeah, and the activities that encourage their children to do quite good as well, Prof.
Yes. We are talking to the converted.
Yeah, you see, 95% of the children are playing outdoors.
Is it? I can't see the second one.
But you need to maybe you need to scroll down a bit.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Oh yeah.
The question number 3.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah,
right.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Playing outdoors, great, fantastic.
Yeah, only like 15% of them are like watching TV and hook
gadgets.
on the gadgets. But most of our children are doing well, Prof.
Yes, that's good. At least the ones who are attending this talk.
Okay, Prof, we pass the stage. Go back to you then.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. So we'll go back to coming back to the talk. Yeah. So this is what WHO has mentioned, because this is a major problem now. We are so children are growing up in this environment which we are not prepared for, and a lot of them are growing up not having sitting around playing with their gadgets. So what WHO has recommended is that to grow up healthy, children need to sit less and play more. All right. So playing is not playing; it is brain development. Okay, it is. So these are the activities that are recommended for children, for infants to be, even as infants, they have to be physically active several times a day in a variety of ways, particularly through interactive floor-based play, because on the floor, they are less likely to fall and therefore less likely to injure themselves. More the better. When it comes to physical activity, the more the better. For those babies who are not mobile yet, they should be put on their tummy. So when babies are put on their tummy, prone position, they're actually quite mobile. Whereas when you put them in the supine position with their face upwards, they are really quite helpless because there is no way where they can move. All right, so on the prone position, it gives them the ability to push them against the floor and to move themselves. Babies should not be restrained to the pram or the stroller or the high chair for more than an hour at any one time, and screen time is not recommended for infants, and to engage them in reading and storytelling when they are not moving. And the amount of sleep that is recommended, good quality sleep that are necessary for growth. Now, for children aged 1 to 2 years old, again, physical activities of any intensity, including moderate to vigorous activity, the more the better. They should not be restrained for more than an hour at any time. So do not take our children put them in the pram and then you walk and they just look around. So that is not the right way to do it. So children should be allowed to move. And for the 1-year-old, screen time should be not recommended, and less is better, and more reading and storytelling. All right. Again, the WHO also recommends that they need at least 11 to 14 hours of good quality sleep. For slightly older children, 3 to 4 years old, they have to spend at least 180 minutes in a variety of physical activities and at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical intensity of physical activity. Again, more is better, and not to be restrained. Older children should not be on a pram and stroller. Okay, sedentary time should be no more than an hour, and the less the better, and that should be spent on reading and storytelling. So again, sleep is important for growth. So now this is what has been recommended for what can we do to promote early child brain development. And these are the 5 pillars that will support optimal early brain development, starting with nutrition, a secure attachment to a caregiver, hopefully it's a parent, and who will give this child responsive caregiving, meaning that the caregiver is receptive and responsive to the child's needs, such as hunger, boredom, the need to play, and health, and early learning. Okay, so these domains are not indivisible. They are not silos. They are very interdependent on each other. So if you have a problem with, say, a mother who is experiencing domestic violence, so that mother is unlikely to be able to give the child a sense of security and safety, and who may also even neglect the child's needs, so not so responsive, and may even neglect the child's nutrition and other learning habits as well. So they tend to be very interdependent. And these are the strategies that are necessary for us to achieve the sustainable development goals. So the next few things are showing the outdoor activities that children can do. So when you first starting outdoors, perhaps it might be wise if the child is unfamiliar with that, because there is a lot of tactile sensation. So you might want to put on some long pants, but later on, as the child grows more used to it, then you can go on to short pants, and then you can see that he is sitting on a very uneven surface, but the child is very, very stable. All right, so he is not afraid. He is exploring the world, and he is also, there are many things that are seen on the outdoors, okay, that we don't see in the picture. For example, the birds, the insects, the wind, the breeze, the sunshine, the waves here in the pictures, and also the bacterial that is growing on the child's skin, as well as in the child's gut microbiome. So they are colonizing. So this child is being exposed to this, and that's how his brain grows. So it is stimulated in so many ways that is inconceivable. Okay, So early childhood development here, the child is learning to balance on moving on an uneven surface, and it's a very, very rough texture. But this child is so confident. You can see he's really confident and very at ease, and he's receiving a lot of sensory stimulation. He's actually connecting with nature, he's earthing with nature, and so many things are happening. All right, and if they're exposed to waves, wow, it is even more. I remember the first time I saw waves when I was as a child. I remember losing my balance a little bit because the sea is moving and you kind of like get a little bit of a sea motion kind of sickness. So being exposed to this helps you in your development of your proprioception. So doing household chores is not something that is to be trivialized, okay? It's a development of social and motor skills. So as parents, we should do it together with our children, be patient to teach our children to learn to play through playing, and very important to lead by example, to have a positive attitude towards household chores. Of course, we need to pay attention to their safety as well and always encourage them. Okay, and it is really not about perfection, about doing it well. At this moment, it is about building their brain circuits. The perfection will come many years later, many years later, after repetition, numerous repetitions. So it is getting started on it is more important than doing it well. Right, but as parents, we need to be able to do this, doing household chores together. So by the age of 2 to 3 years old, they should be able to throw out garbage, sort out their toys. 3 to 4 years old, brushing their teeth, and watering the plants, and feeding the pets, and making their beds, and preparing the meal, setting the tables up, wipe the table, clean up the room. So we can see in this child who is plucking the leaves of the vegetable, you can see so many things going on. So it's not just about the job that is done. Okay, it's about the neural activity that is going on in a child's brain. There's a planning, there's an organization of the work, there is a focused attention, and the development of the fine motor skills and sensory integration, which eventually contributes to the child's sense of confidence, his understanding of the world, his navigating. So these are skills what we call the executive, the higher executive function of the brain. And the child is developing at this age. So in order to promote early childhood development, these are the 5 R's: reading together as a family activity, to have a shared focus that promotes the bonding, right? Rhyming, playing, talking, singing, cuddling, the routines, to have a regular times for meals, for play, for outdoor exercises, for sleeping. And very important is to bookend your days, to start with a day and then to end. Okay, so there is a beginning and there is an end. So if you do this regularly, the child, when he goes to school, he knows how to organize himself. You don't have to organize themselves. They will know how to do it. But if they have never done it, they will sleep at any time, play at any time, there is no fixed time, then you will have a big headache trying to organize them. And it's not going to happen so easily. Whereas when they are small, they just fall into the routine and they do it for the rest of their lives. Okay, and we should also give them rewards for their small everyday successes. It doesn't have to be in the forms of money or ice cream or sweets or chocolates. It can be an outing, okay, a trip to the beach or a trip to the park. Okay, yeah, and these relationships that are reciprocal, nurturing and enduring are basically the foundation of healthy child development. So the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Okay? The journey of life begins in the first 1,000 days. However, we have to be really careful. So 差之毫厘, 谬以千里. So if you get it wrong, even if you deviate just a half of a degree, 1,000 miles later, you're completely lost. So you need to really get it right from the beginning. So we as adults are guilty of many errors and many faults, but our worst crime is abandoning the children, neglecting the foundation of life. Many of the things we need can wait, the child cannot. Right now is the time his bones are formed, his blood is being made, his senses are being developed. To him, we cannot answer tomorrow. His name is today. Today. Okay, so I like to, just leave you with some pictures. A lot of us, we eat chicken. The price of chicken has gone up, but I'm sure we're still eating them. But have our children seen the real thing, the live one? Okay, so it is something that we need to think about. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. So that's my last slide, and I'd like to thank all the mothers who have contributed photos of their children for this lecture, and the team members of the Child Health Clinic in the University Hospital. All right, so that's it. So I'm just in time, 1 hour. So I'd like to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prof. It's really an eye-opening, quite interesting talk as well, especially on child health, you see. So yeah, looking back during my childhood time, I'm still considered the fortunate one growing, having my grandparents in the village, and the moment you go back and you say, Akong, I want to eat some curry chicken, then the Akong will say, okay, well, you go and chase the chicken. If you got the chicken, I'll cook for you tonight. Yeah. So
what did the Akong say? I missed that part.
He said, okay, you want to eat the curry chicken, right? You go and catch one, and if you manage to catch one in my garden, I'll cook it for you.
Oh gosh.
And back in the kampong, all the chickens are like running around like nobody business there. Wow, you start chasing them. Wow. It's fun. It's fun. It's true that we are eating it. How many of our children are really saying it? Well said.
Yeah.
All right. So we move on for the Q&A side. Okay, allow me to share this. Let's see. Okay, our questions and answers. So again, a reminder to everyone. So if you have any questions, do type in the chat box in the Zoom, or also the comment section in the Facebook Live, and we'll collect them here, and then we'll address it for you. Okay, first questions we have here from Chunman from the Facebook. Would it benefit the child if it let the baby sit up on the walker but lock the wheels? What do you think, Prof?
I don't know how you're going to lock the wheels. I don't know. I have no experience. I don't know why you want the baby to sit up. But if the baby can sit up, he will sit up. Why do we want to put him on a walker? I have no idea.
I think maybe the walker can, if we it's not natural, but then a support like that, so the child maybe can like supported under the walker.
I think we always underestimate children. We underestimate and we disempower them. We disempower them because we underestimate them. If you look at a child, how a child moves around, he will cruise, he will look for a support. If he cannot walk without support, he will crawl, and that crawling is very important for his development. All right. And then if he gets to stand up, he will pull himself to stand, and then he will cruise around furniture. So he learns to navigate, he learns to solve problems. So he is doing problem solving. We don't have to solve the problem for them. Actually, we are creating problems for them by putting them in a walker, because we provide all the support. They don't need to look for the support, and then they don't need to look for anything. So how will their brain grow if we don't give them the chance to look for them, watch out for themselves? They know what they want, so let them do. Our role is to just make sure that they are safe. That's all. But we have to let them, the nature and the muscle development and the strength come on its own in its own time. And that it is a very incremental process, but it is a slow, stage by stage. You cannot kind of jumpstart it. Oh, I want to skip this phase and then get on to that. You can't. You just leave the child and then he will do it on his own. I don't know whether that answers the question, but I don't think we can jumpstart anything. All right, it will backfire as far as I know it. Because I've seen children, 13, 14, once they go on the walker, they come to the clinic, I want to see them walk. You can see the child immediately pulls out his legs. Why? Because he has no support. Even though he's 15 months old, he has no support. He cannot put his feet on the ground.
Ah, okay.
Because he's never had it before, done it before. So he's not going to do it in the clinic.
Yep, agreed.
Because there's no walker in the clinic.
Yeah, that's correct. Okay. Next one.
Can I make a comment on that, Chin An or Prof. Lucy Lam?
Oh, Dr.
Yes,
Koo is here.
Dr. Koo.
Yeah,
Yes,
can I
Dr.
make a
Koo.
quick comment on, thank you for the wonderful talk. I think this question is very relevant. A lot of parents does that. But I think the answer to this is that we have to be very patient with the brain development of the child. You can see a child can only sit 8.5 months old without support. So you cannot make the child sit earlier. And I think it's very important. Then he can pull himself to stand at about 12 months and walk without support at 14.5 months. So you have to wait for the brain to develop before you can jumpstart the child.
Yeah.
So I think the walker all is not important at all. This may, because your child is not ready yet. So you cannot want to make your child do things faster than when the brain is not ready. Thank you.
Yeah. And I think that the less we expose this child to all these external gadgets, the faster they will develop. We have children in our clinic who are already walking at 10 months, 11 months, independently, because the parents have been primed that no walker, you are starting to put your child weight bearing very early in life, and then they are very strong already. So they can, if you want to get them to walk fast, is to get them to do more exercises right from the beginning. And that will strengthen them up faster. But it's not like, you have to do it in a stage by stage. The body will know what to do. We cannot determine that. We can give the child the experience, but then the brain, those neural circuits have to form before the child can do it.
Yep, very much agreed, Prof. Okay, interesting. And also for the audience information, Dr. Koo is one of a very senior pediatrician here with us tonight as well. We are so delightful to have Dr. Koo with us also. So, okay, we move on a bit to the question because I start to see the questions are queuing up here already. All right, so from Yen Yao, when is the right time to stop breastfeeding? And my baby now 1 year old, he is purely taking breastfeeding. I think this is more on weaning, right, Prof? And
I think we should, that should be at a nutrition workshop. We'll do this.
Also to just spice out a bit for your information, we are going to have a huge talk on nutrition for our episode 2 and episode 3. Do stay tuned. But maybe here, Prof, would you like to just buzz a bit, share a bit with Yen Yao on some thoughts here?
I think it's very good and it's fantastic that you are still breastfeeding at the age of 1 year. And I hope he's not purely taking breast meat feeding, because he should be on solids and porridge and a lot of other food that he should be eating, not just pure breast milk. And the recommendation is to go on breastfeeding until the age of 2, minimum 2 years old, and if not beyond. There is nothing wrong with continuing to breastfeed the baby, as long as the baby is growing and getting the right amount of nutrients. But it should not be pure breast milk.
And also Yen Yao here mentioned about some milk powder. I'm not sure. I think it's
powder
milk powder.
Milk powder. Yeah. No need to mix. Why do you want to mix?
This one we will keep it a bit of mystery here. It will be revealed on the second episode on weaning diet. Do stay tuned on that. We have one full episode on that. Right, Prof?
Yeah.
Okay, next we have here from Sky Cloud from Facebook. What are the important nutrition or nutrients for children up to 2 years old? I think this one will be covered on the third episode on toddlers, but maybe Prof. Lucy can have some preview
No, I
here.
think we better move on.
Move on.
Too many nutrients. We will move on because it's not the right platform.
Stay tuned. Okay. So does the different formula milk that contains DHA, etc., really help the baby's brain development as advertised from?
Yeah, I mean, the advertisers would like you to know that it does. That's why we can buy it. The advertisers, all the milk companies, they say yes, it does, it does. They say all the research done by these milk companies shows that it does. But when we look at the what they call that, the meta-analysis, it doesn't make much difference. So, but when it's done by different milk companies, all of them say yes, it does. So it looks like it depends on who does the research.
Okay, so it's like a gray.
It's still an unanswered question. Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Well, let's move on then. Okay. Wait, I think I turned the jump. Okay. From Hazel in Zoom. Just curious, is there any research and results on full-time mom versus nanny versus grandmother's care?
Oh, okay. Very interesting. I wish I wish I could do this kind of research, but it's not easy because full-time mothers and nannies and grandmothers, there's so many nuances that are different. It's not just a label, you know, it's not just a label. Some nannies are very, very good and some grandmothers are very, very good. But of course, different qualities. You cannot just label, oh, because you're a grandmother or you are a nanny or you are better or you are worse than a full-time mom. I don't think it is such an easy research. So I haven't come across any papers that look at that.
Okay.
Not when it comes like full-time mom. Of course, we would think that theoretically a full-time mom would have more time to care, but then it depends on what is a full-time mom. Is it because she is unemployed that's why she is full-time, or she, you know, there is so many other layers of other factors that behind these terminologies, and it is a very, I think it's still very individual, that relationship between the full-time mom or the nanny or the grandmother with that child. Yeah. Oh, do you want me to show my face? I'm supposed to show the face, is it? Sorry.
Can also?
Because earlier on I was told to switch off the mic. I mean the video. Okay.
Okay, come. Let's move on to the next one. From Yu Xuan. So, morning, Prof. I would like to ask, there was a myth among Chinese old folks where there are certain foods that should be avoided on the first few years of life. Should we practice this culture or anything we can do for the child's development?
Oh, okay. So this is again surrounding about food, but I think that it depends on what sort of culture. Culture is not something that is fixed. Okay, it is very contextual, I would say. You know, I recently had a mother. She would not give her baby. She is by no means poor, but the child was only eating porridge and pumpkin. And the child is, you can see that the centiles are kind of falling, you know, further and further away from the third centile. And she says that, you know, the old people think that, you know, in the first year of life, they shouldn't be eating eggs. They shouldn't be eating this and that. They shouldn't even be eating rice. I said, well, in China, fortunately, I found a paper in China. In China, in those days, Chinese people were eating only mi hu because we can't afford anything else, right? Because we were so poor. That's why we were only eating mi hu. But nowadays in China, people are not eating mi hu anymore. They're eating eggs. Their first complementary diet, even in the place, very rural area, is actually egg yolk. So I was so surprised. I found this paper that, okay, look, this is you know, we are not living like 100 years ago. We came from China maybe 100 years ago, and we carried all this old folks' tales with us. 100 years later, we are still practicing. But people in China have already moved on. They're already eating egg yolk, and they start weaning is not at 6 months, it's at 4 months. Right? So they are far ahead of us. That's why they are now so tall. Whereas we Malaysian Chinese are still, you know, very short.
Oh, okay. That's really interesting.
Yes, it's interesting, and people like us that we're still stuck onto the old, customs that our grandparents brought. But people in China have already moved on. They are much more affluent now.
Well, I would say to answer this question,
we need to
again,
move on.
Stay tuned to our next future episodes that will touch on this as well. Okay, so next I think we have Chai here, have quite a lengthy one, but we separate into like 3 sections. So thank you, Prof. Lucy, for the $1 million talk. Truly grateful. I wish all parents and grandparents are able to listen to this. And may I ask, Prof, what's your thoughts and advice
nutrition.
on nutrition? Well,
wow,
Chai,
the
stay
nutrition
tuned.
one.
Really?
Yes,
yeah,
stay tuned.
Prof, really, people are calling you. Prof, please give us more input on nutrition. We need that, Prof.
Yes.
Okay,
but I think that we need to get the development, the social stimulation right as well. Yeah, nutrition is important, yes, but it is not just children don't understand nutrition. Okay, let me tell you, children, we understand nutrition, but children don't understand nutrition. What do they understand? They understand things that go through their senses, their sensory. Okay, they don't understand that, oh, this one is rich in protein, this one is rich in vitamin A and all that. They don't. We know it. But it is how we present it to the child. It has to be through the senses. It's through their neural development. So that's why the development lecture has to come precede the nutrition lecture. If not, then you will think that it's just nutrition. It's just nutrition. It's like breast milk, breastfeeding. It's just about nutrition. No, it is development as well. It is brain development during that breastfeeding. All that skin to skin contact, that smell, that eye to eye contact, brain is stimulating the child's brain development. But lots of parents just see I give my baby breast milk in the bottle. That's fine as long as it's breast milk. So they're only looking at very narrow view. In terms of childhood development, I must say that we are only looking at it at the nutrition point of view. We're not looking at the big picture. The big picture is how do we present this nutrition to the baby that he will accept it.
Well,
so that's why the development is important. You got to put the context there.
It's just like what you mentioned it earlier on the mouthing part, right? That when they really put something in the mouth, then take it out, have a look, then put it in the mouth again to really learn it. And like we, the parents, sometimes we think that, well, if I let the child to eat by him or herself, it would just be like so nasty, so messy around. So might as well I just feed the child everything. Then we lost this chance for the child to develop all the sensory neural development. And also like I saw one more thing is that our young parents, we like to put on mittens and also socks on the child, which like, well, you are blocking them from developing all the sensory
pathways.
Yeah, how rough are the woods, how cold are the floors, everything. They are like restricting everything. The neuron was like, I'm so eagerly to connect, but you not allow me to. So
we block it.
True.
We block it off.
Okay.
And we think that we love our child, therefore we have to cover his hands in mittens and all that. But we are actually preventing him from receiving those impulses that will stimulate his brain development. So it is, Then how do we expect them to grow up to be confident? How do we expect them when they have been blocked in that very, very early stage? They haven't got a very firm foundation.
Yeah, very true. And also here, I think Chai had some problem with like sharing with people about all this useful information that for many parents who are not aware of this, when pointed out on this life transforming information, it will be quite distressing and painful for parents to realize and admit that their current practice is less than ideal. So in your opinion, Prof, how would you share this kind of information to friends around you or like even your colleagues? Any tips?
I think we cannot change the past. Whatever that is, you have done in the past, if you know it's harmful, you just change it. There's and there's nothing that you can do to change what you have done in the past. But from this time onwards, then if you know that you're putting a baby on a baby walker or putting your baby in front of a television or a YouTube it is not doing him any good, then you just stop doing it. And then the brain will start to recalibrate itself. The child will recalibrate. Yes, of course, there will be, if he has been already so used to the TV and then you take it away, of course, there is some degree of attachment and addiction, to it, like any other children, like, you give them sweets every day and then suddenly there's no sweets because the doctor says that sweets are not good. So there will be a period of withdrawal, but then eventually the child will learn to recalibrate himself. And then you'll say, oh, there are other things to do. Oh, if I don't have the TV, actually, I can go to the park and play. So you need to replace, find an alternative that a child will also, that is, so you are just replacing something that is not useful to something that is more stimulating for brain development. And we all learn from our own mistakes. It's not as if I didn't learn, I didn't make any mistakes. Of course, we all learn from bringing up our children. And so we try to, the moment we know that this is not right, then we correct it. And then the child they are still very neuroplastic. Their brain is still at a neuroplasticity stage. So they will recalibrate and then they will find their own direction again and then correct it. So what we are doing is just changing the external circumstances and environment so that the brain will then grow in a more normal way.
Agreed. And also one thing I can see. One thing I can see
from be distressed. Yeah, if you do it early. Of course, if you do it when they are already adolescents, then it's too late now. It's very difficult already. Yeah. But when they are still, 2 to 3 years old, that is the best time to do it, to make those changes before they become adolescents, when they are already asserting themselves, their independence and all that. It is, I would say, when you wait until that time, it is, can be quite late. Yeah. But so it's still never too late. It's still never too late. Yeah. With our children, it is never too late.
I can really
doing something, you have to go through the pain yourself, not just them.
I can really say is that I can really say is that, like, you start from yourself, then slowly you influence people around you. And then I think Chai here is really putting one very good questions here, is like, any recommended resources on parenting in any of the element mentions in your talk? It's like, aside from this talk, any other places where people can get good reference that you recommend?
Actually, when one of them is the Harvard University Child Development Center. I think one of the slides, on neurodevelopment has got maybe, I think I'll look up some sites and then you can look at it. But I think you've got to be a bit careful. I gave some references in some of the slides, so you could look up those references as well. The Harvard University one is the one that is best known. There are many sites. Actually, there are many websites. It's just that how are they? What do you call that? What is the credibility? We really don't know. So we need to go to sites that are, that are creditable.
Maybe later on, when we develop an ebook for this talk, we can include a few, 1 or 2 good references that Prof would recommend reliable, and share with everybody.
Yes.
All right. Then next we have Treeman here asking, at what age should we seek help if we suspect the child has speech delay?
Okay, so speech development actually occurs very early. All right, it occurs, of course, speech delay, there are many causes. All right, there are many, from hearing all the way down to autism and all that. So the speech actually starts very early in life. So during that serve and return, you can hear that the child is already cooing. Okay, he's already making sounds. Those are the early speech of a child. Okay, it may not be, you may not think it is, but the child is already vocalizing. All right, then from that cooing, the vowels, then he will go on to develop the consonants where the lips become. So when he starts to put things into his mouth, That's when you will find that he has more, the sounds that he makes have got more syllables already. We call it the polysyllabic kind of babbling. Okay, so then the consonants will come in, the mum, mama, papa, 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 da, 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 that sort of more consonants. Early on is a g, 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 ga, 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 e, that sort of things. So that is already speech. All right, and then we want, these are the few milestones that we detect. We do not want to detect when the child, that, because it's very important to make sure that the child can hear. All right, so those early speech are very important. They're not nonsense. Is the child communicating, and is the child like, the mother is talking and the child is blah blah blah, and then so there is this serve and return. Okay, it may not be sensible to the adult, but it is the child communicating with the mother. So it's a very interesting to watch how the mother can talk to the child, and the child can answer back. But it is not intelligible, but the mother understands because she's not using her ears. She's using her heart to communicate with the child. So, so these are things that we look out for. And then the child being able to turn to sounds, to in the direction of the sounds. Those are very, very important because that sets the foundation. If they cannot hear, then they're not going to speak. All right, so they cannot, so they need to be, so the hearing should come, we should be able to detect that hearing loss. In fact, nowadays, I think even at the time of birth, we do a screening for hearing loss. So those, in order to, so that they don't miss out on that auditory development, pathway development. Then we talk about intelligent words now. Okay, so the non, so apart from speech, there is other forms of communication, right? Like non-verbal communication, which are very, very important. Okay, which you don't get to see in autistic children. All right, autistic children, they're not only is their speech delayed, they do not have any other non-verbal ways of interaction with their caregivers. So the interaction with the caregivers through speech is only one aspect. There are many other ways that we should to evaluate, like the non-verbal, I would say the body language. Okay, the child looking at the mother if they say something new, or the child, that when the mother moves out of the room, out of sight, the child suddenly looks around, hey, where's the mother? That sort of, so you need to see that means that the child knows that he's in a different, the mother has left. The child is, the awareness of the child is very important. So speech is only one one small aspect of this whole development on what we call communication, verbal as well as non-verbal communication. So now coming to speech delay, when you should seek help for speech delay, generally at about 18 months, we start to screen. All right, if there's no intelligent words like mama, baba, and by 18 months, we start to do what we call the M-check, okay, which is a screening test for, we start to like thinking about, oh, is this child autistic now? Okay, we have autism spectrum disorder. Right, so, but all these, we actually start evaluating for these sounds and the speech right from beginning. Okay, the child cooing, babbling, all the way through both the verbal and non-verbal means. So I hope that answers your question. But really, if you talk about a real time cutoff, is generally 18 months. The child should be able to call papa, mama. And generally, most children, by about 12, 13 months, they should be able to do it. But I think in this day and age, when a child is exposed to so much of television screen time and not too much parental time, then, for a child to say a single word, they have to hear it thousands and thousands of times before they know the meaning, right? So you have to like, it's not as if they know mama straight away. No, they have to, who, mama, mama, they have to like work up in their mind, who is this person, mama, or that, and then they say, oh, like that, and then he has to hear it many, many times. Then only he will, oh, okay, this is mama. Then only, so the understanding of the speech, what we call the receptive speech, is also important. Okay, because that is tells you what is the intellectual, the cognitive development in this child. Does he understand it? Yeah, he may be completely non-verbal, but he can, carry out, you tell him to throw this thing, put this into the rubbish bin, put this in the cupboard, go and fetch the whatever. He knows how to do it. So he actually understands. Okay, so there are so many, I hope you know what I mean by saying that there are so many aspects of speech. Yeah, the speech, just the verbal really, component. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, we need to talk to the child, because like that's really important. Like what Prof mentioned is like you have to stimulate it. If you don't stimulate it, how would you expect the child know how to respond you with all those things? And yeah, very, very, very interesting. And shall we move on? Oh, not this one, sorry. Okay, this one. My child of Celine is asking that some things is like, the child is 7 and lack of attention and focus when I teach him to write and do simple addition. He gets easily distracted. How do I encourage him to calm and focus? He was on the walker. Would that affect his brain development?
So I think it's difficult to answer questions like this because I don't have the context of it. The context of the bigger picture, meaning that the past history, blah blah blah, things that you cannot take it like, okay, I take this one out and I should be able to analyze it like that. No, things are actually very continuous, so we have to like go through the whole strand of it to be able to like say, okay, give some suggestions as to how to be able to answer. It would take a long time to get through, to dig out, what he has been doing all these years, because it's 7 years old. It's much easier than they're only 7 months old. Okay? Then you don't have that much time, and then if we get it right every step of the way, then things fall into place when the time comes. Okay, but if you are now 7 years old, 7 years, is a long time. Then you suddenly want a child to read and write and all that. Has he been feeding himself? Has he been doing housework? Has he been doing all this? If he hasn't been doing, how is he going to use his hands to do all the fine motor skills of writing? If he hasn't even been, number one, feeding himself, has he been doing housework? Has he been practicing, his fine finger movements in other ways other than writing? All right, so those are very, very important. It leads to, that's why I said childhood is a really continuous multi-stage process. So you cannot say that, okay, I want to jump in, you learn to play the piano now. You first of all, you've got to get your hands, fine finger movements, coordination, blah, 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 all right first, before you can learn to do something that is complex. So learning to write is very, very complex. So the simple circuits got to be there first, before you can get on to the more complex circuits.
Agreed, okay. Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think if we put the child on a walker, that would not really affect his brain development severely affecting it. Not really, right?
I think it is depends on how long he was on the walker, whether it affected his walking, whether he walked at the, was there a delay in his walking? Yes, and then whether he went through the tiptoeing part and all that. Then how strong are his hip girdle muscles now, and his spine muscles, because those are the muscles that are going to be affected by being on the walker, the lower limb muscles, basically the strength of the lower limb muscles.
Yeah. Okay, I think let's take one more question.
I saw a very interesting question just now.
Which one?
Whether the proper language, that's right. When a baby talks in their own language, yes, this is very, very important. Okay, so we must talk back in the proper language. You cannot use baby language. Okay, otherwise your baby, like I said, in order to just form a word called mama, papa, the child has to hear it so many times, thousands of times. If you say sisi, mum, and all that, the child will not be able to say, I want to eat, I want to sleep, I want to, I want to go and have to the toilet. They'll just say, I want sisi, sisi, And why does the child say sisi? Because he has heard sisi so many thousand times. He hasn't been saying, I need to go to the toilet. He hasn't said that. He hasn't heard it. So those words, so when we respond back to respond to our children, we have to use the proper language that they will eventually learn to speak in. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah,
Yep.
it is not that we shouldn't be using that baby language, because they will learn baby language. It's not that they will not learn, they will learn, but they will not learn the proper adult language. So when they go to the kindergarten, they will say, I want to sisi, I want to mum. So what else? What can you do? It is not their fault that they have been conditioned this way. So if they have been conditioned already, then this is how they respond. There is no way you want to change the condition, yes, but you're limited by the neuroplasticity. So when the brain is very plastic in the beginning of life, then you do it properly. Then you put them on the right stage for proper language.
Okay, yep. Okay, I think next Chai also. Oh, this is per se to just now our poll. He did mention that this result might be a bit biased because obviously people spending time in this Saturday night listening to parenting golden tips. So obvious this group is very attentive.
Yeah, sometimes like I always tell people, we don't know what we don't know. If we know what we don't know, we will go and seek the answers. We will go and seek the answers. And when we know what we don't know and we are seeking the answers will come to you. It's like the teacher will come to you. When you know that you don't know, the teacher will come to you. But if you don't know that you don't know, then the teacher appears in front of you. You also don't bother. You'll say he's talking nonsense.
Yeah. Okay, let's go for the very last one for today. I think this is the last one that we're going to take in. So from Skycloud again from Facebook, should we soothe and calm the child, which is below 2 years old, when the child is crying for a long time to the extent of throwing tantrums due to not being able to obtain certain things that the child wanted, or crying for whatsoever reason? Or should we ignore their cries and let the child learn themselves by realizing there is no one to console them, so they should stop crying themselves, Prof?
Okay, so again, this is a bit something that is out of context. A child will not throw tantrum for no good reason. There are many, many things leading to it, and that is the final straw. Whatever that he cannot get is the final straw. But before the final straw comes, there are many things leading to it. Most likely, the child, I can see that in our, at least in our clinic, the questions that we always ask is, does this child ever get to go out of the house? They say, oh, during weekends. My God. So for the 5 days a week, the child is inside the house. He's under house arrest. All right. How is a child not going to throw tantrum? So this child needs to see the outside world. He wants to go out. He wants to explore. He wants to learn about the outside. And all we want is that to stay inside the house, be a good boy and eat your food, and then go to sleep at the right time. So we are not respecting the needs of the child, who needs to learn to explore the world, and the world is beyond his house. Then he needs to get out of the house, go out in the sunshine, feel the wind, feel the grass, listen to the trees, listen to the insects, and listen to the birds. And these are the things that he will know, I'm connected to a greater world outside. When you keep him inside the house, he has no knowledge of how is connection. So he doesn't understand. So everything is just very self. If I don't get it, I'm very angry. I don't get this one I want, I'm very angry. Whereas if you get him out of the house, there's so many things to occupy his mind. He has no time to be like so self-focused. I'm going to look, oh, there's a dog there. Oh, there's a cat there. And the dog is chasing the cat or something like that. So, there's so many things to entertain him outside in the outside world. But we are not exposing our child. We are giving them a gadget to see the things in virtual, which they may or may not understand. So I think we need to, let's not focus on the tantrums or on the negatives, but see the bigger picture. Just open up your eyes, a wide angle view, and then to see, have they been out? Have their needs been answered? Their needs are usually, they need to get out of the house. Like in WHO, they say at least 3 hours of activity, okay? Not all of it should be inside the house, at least 1 hour outside the house to get that sunshine. If nothing else, it is sunshine to get a vitamin D. But of course, there is a lot more outside. Okay. I myself, if I don't go out of the house for one day, I'll go crazy. During the MCO, no, you can see people in Shanghai in the MCO, they're already crazy already. So in fact, actually, one of my friends who was working in with the refugees, and there was an outbreak of COVID, and all the children had to be locked in their room, to be isolated. I said, yes, the SOP is made for adults, but children cannot. And then sure enough, the second day of the quarantine, I got a call that, oh, these children, some of them are already vomiting, they are not eating and all that. So I missed the call anyway. So I called back 1 hour later and I said, hey, how are the children? I'm sorry, I missed your call. Oh, they're okay already. We opened the door and they got out of the house and then they were running in the park. So you see, children forget that they are sick when they see the outside world. They forget that about their vomiting, their poor appetite. They just want to run out. Please let them run out, because we are built that way. We don't move, we don't exercise. Those of you who are like me, I have to do my exercises every day. If I don't do it, it's not easy to sleep. So go and do it. So I think we cannot take the tantrum and just focus on the tantrum. Just spread out the eyes a little bit wider, and then we can it is no child will not want to go out of the house and play outside the house. This is where they want to be, outside. Okay, so I don't think we should ignore their cries. Okay, maybe we can distract them by saying that, oh, do you want to go out? Maybe we go out, we wear your shoes, let's go wear your shoes and let's go out to play. So that is, I don't think it is good to, if they are having tantrum and they're feeling frustrated, then they will just become, eventually lock themselves in emotionally, okay, and they won't open up. It's very difficult for them to open up. Whereas if you take them in the open air, then they know how to open up. Because if I'm feeling terrible and lousy, what I need to do is just go out and walk and see the real world, see the trees, smell the grass, smell the flowers, and then I'll be okay. So nature is the key. Nature is the cure for our mental illness.
Yeah, it's really very true that we should not ignore their cries. It's kind of
it's
cruel.
A cry for help. Yeah, it's a cry for attention. It's a cry for I need something, but they don't know how to vocalize it. They can't tell you that I need to go out and do my exercise. They can't tell you. But now that you have gone through this lecture, I hope, and in fact, WHO, actually, I was so surprised when WHO came out with those guidelines. Say it must be quite serious for WHO to go down to that level. Tell me spelling out how many hours of physical activity, how many hours of screen time, how many hours of sleep time. So it must be quite serious for WHO to pay attention to that. And I think that we should heed those, advice.
Yeah. Okay. So before we end, Prof, any final words for our audience, our parents tonight?
I think it's very interesting. People, I do not want to make you feel bad, because I made a lot of mistakes with my 3 children and I learned through them. And it's never too late to make amends for our children. So of course, we do a lot of things, not intentionally to harm them. Like I said, most of the time we are ignorant. Okay, we are ignorant of what our impact on our children and how profound that impact is. But the sooner we know it, but the sooner we make amends, the more likely the chances of recovery. Okay, because I said the brain is neuroplastic. Okay, the earlier we make the changes, the faster the child will respond positively to our overtures. And soon, the children, they want to be close to us. There's no, unless we are such cruel parents and may have really neglected them. I don't think we do it willfully also, maybe unintentionally. I think we can always make amends. There's always time for forgiving and moving on to a better phase and improving ourselves as parents, and to help our children to be better and more stable and adults, so that they themselves can be good parents.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prof. Lucy. We are really happy to have you here tonight with us. And then before we end, I'm going to launch another poll here, is to just roughly get some feedbacks from our participants on the talk tonight, and to see overall satisfactions, and then like how had this talk impact you, and all are the lifestyles, are you willing to adjust your lifestyle to accommodate your child's sorry, someone is okay. All right. So and also before we end, also before we adjourn to the next meeting, just to inform everybody that the recording and an ebook from this talk will be generated and made available and at MNCC website at mymncc.org in 1 to 2 weeks time. So no worries, you can always view this back. Like Chai, you can always share this to your friends and family members, or like even some people, some young parents that is like going to have received their newborn soon. Yeah, this is a very, very good talk to be shared. And do like and follow our MNCC Facebook, and then stay tuned for all the informations up there. All the latest information will be updated there lah. Yeah, so with that, I think I thank you.
Can I make a few comments?
Hey, yes, please.
Yes, Dr. Koo. Yes,
Before we end, just comment and highlight some of the very important points Prof. Lucy Lam has brought forward.
Yes, please. Yes.
I think, yeah. So point number one is that I think we should not feel guilty. One of the parents felt very guilty, you know, because I think all of us try our best to be the best parent we can. And I think the policy is that we can be just good enough parents. I think that's very important. And we learn our parenting most of the time through our parents and what we witness and experience. So of course, as we learn, then we improve our parenting skill. Another point I want to bring up is about screen time and TV time. You can see that one of the slides Prof. Lucy shows that all the children were looking at screen. You know, screen is one of the main cause. Like there was a 7-year-old child who cannot pay attention. If you look at how the child has been brought up, very often we find there's excessive use of screen. And if you look at the screen itself, there's too much noise moving and too much of movements. And that way the circuit in the brain starts to move very fast. And I think that's one of the main problems of poor attention in class and concentration. So I think for parents, I think very important to have 0 screen time for the first 2 years. After that, maybe half an hour supervised. The other point that Prof. Lucy brought up about sleep time. Sleep time, you can see, is very, very important. Why? Because during sleep, if you let your baby sleep before 8:30 or 9, if you measure the growth hormone, there's a marked spurt in the growth hormone during from about 9 o'clock onwards. So imagine if your child sleep at 12, you miss this growth spurt and you miss the child growing up. The other good thing is, I think important is this serve and return. I think that is the most important thing what you can continuous to do with your child. Why is that so? Because I think secure attachment is one of the most important thing we must do with our child. So because with insecure attachment, we see a lot of mental health problems later in life. So with this secure attachment, the most important person is the caregiver, a kind, caring, attentive caregiver who can give time, who can make the child feel seen to be valuable. That's why doing housework, all that, the child will feel valuable, to be soothed when the child cries or dirty or hungry, to feel safe. There's somebody they can run to and security. I think one of the most important things for our mental health, our children, we see a lot of anxiety and depression, is to be able to give this secure attachment. Unfortunately, most parents are working, and so the caregiver is the most important itself. So it doesn't matter whoever it is, but I think this secure attachment is important. Another point is that, Prof. Lucy, you brought up that one of your 5R is reward for success. I think we have to be very careful how we reward our children. We must reward our children for effort, not for results. If every time the child gets rewarded for results, then the child will think, if I don't do well, I may not get rewarded. I would not attempt difficult things, do not attempt difficult questions or tasks. I just do not want to do. So I think very important, the reward to me should not be for just success, for the effort the child put in. Praise effort, not praise you are so clever. Okay, that is very, I think very important. And let me see. Okay, the other question is about, you mentioned about positive speech. So here you mentioned that the educated tend to speak more words. Of course, I think the less educated speak less words itself. But doesn't mean when you're educated, you speak only positive words. I've seen many children who has so much of anxiety of going to school because of negative words. These negative words can come from very educated, clever, intelligent parents. And also, I think, of course, I think when you speak to the child more, use different vocabulary, your vocabulary of the child will improve. But positive words for your child is very important, because if you keep on saying negative, the negative will appreciate and the child will remember only negative and give them a lot of anxiety. Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Lucy.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Koo. Yes, it's very nice. Yeah. I agree 100% with you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really so happy to have both of you here, Dr. Koo and Prof. Lucy, with us tonight. So I think the time is also up. We shall adjourn this meeting and we shall see each other again on our next coming talk in August. Stay tuned, which is talking on winning. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Bye.